And then my friend that was at the hospital with us, kind of acting as a doula, she's not really, but acting as a doula, was able to come in the recovery room and just was like, I'm so proud of you. Like you labored so well. You were so brave. You did everything you could for these babies. Like you did exactly what needed to be done in order to bring these two very healthy babies into the world. And she just like sat and held my hand for a little bit and was just like, I'm proud of you. Like, I know this isn't what you wanted, but I'm so proud of you. And there was some element of redemption, even in that birth, not going the way that it was planned. It didn't feel traumatic. It didn't feel like chaotic and like what in the world just happened. Like the first one. Yeah. It felt like, no, I can follow the steps. I know what happened. I was alert and conscious and present and aware. And yeah, it didn't go like I wanted. You know, looking back on it now, almost 3 years later, like, yeah, if I had done things differently, would it have turned into a C-section? I don't know. Like maybe it wouldn't have, but it did. And that's what happened. And I can't change it.
Holy Wild Birth is a podcast embracing the reclamation of giving birth rooted in God's original design, undisturbed.
Here, we share home birth stories highlighting God's presence as the great midwife, as well as conversations about all aspects of a holistic, spirit-led childbearing year, from the perspectives of myself, traditional midwife Lauren Hall, of Rooted in Eden Private Membership Association,
and me, holistic birthkeeper and photographer Brooke Collier of Sister Birth. Together, we are co-founders and facilitators of Hearth Mother Journey, where we are raising up the next generation of holy wild birthkeepers.
To choose a holy wild birth journey is to consecrate all of your decisions unto the Lord and reclaim creation unadulterated by centuries of human attempts to control and improve upon what God has called good.
Please remember that birth is not a medical event, but a natural process, and we are not your care providers, so this should not be taken as medical advice. Hey, Holy Wild Birth listeners! I am in the studio, actually, not virtually, actually, in my office with a dear, wonderful friend and mama who is local enough to me that she could just run over to my house and we could record a podcast episode together. So I'm really excited to be here with Becky.
Yay!
I've known Becky for several years through my chiropractor. She has a handful of amazing birth stories to share with us. We're going to touch on her first two relatively briefly. They're remarkable, kind of wild stories, and so we don't want to skip them. And then we're going to talk about her third in a little more depth. But so Becky, hi.
Hi.
Thank you for being here.
Yeah, I'm so excited.
Me too.
Yeah, so I'm Becky. I am a wife to Dan, mama to 4 littles, David, and then Gabby and Audra and Liana. And I'll share a little bit more about them as I share about their births. Like Brooke said, she knows me through her chiropractor. So my background is actually that I used to be a nurse. And I went through nursing school, worked as a nurse in several different capacities for several years, and then got connected with a chiropractic office and kind of started shifting my health mindset to more health focused and more like preventative and root cause driven, and away from more of the standard medical model that a lot of us know. So Brooke asked me before we started recording, do you mind if we talk about why you wanted to pursue a home birth for your first? And I kind of gave a chuckle because I remember very vividly, I don't know, maybe 12 or 13 years ago, an acquaintance posted about a home birth on Facebook. And I had this thought of why in the world would anyone ever do this? That's insane. I was still in nursing at that point, still full-fledged medical, and just thought that was the craziest thing ever. And then I started my journey with chiropractic, and I started working in this office, and I started learning more about health and about birth especially, and just was wait, why would you not want to give birth at home? Why would you not want to have an intervention-free birth? Why would you why in the world would you take your perfectly healthy body and your perfectly healthy baby to a place where people are sick and dying? This just doesn't feel right at all. So I swung from way on one side of the pendulum to way on the other side. And was only ever at home.
You had some
And
good
so,
role models at our chiropractic office too. There's a lot of wonderful home birth and mamas.
Yes.
In that office.
A lot of good people to learn from. So, yeah.
Yeah. That's quite a pendulum swing though. If I'm going to like, that's absolutely crazy. I would never, and I don't understand how anyone could ever. Obviously, I'm doing this.
Yeah. Yeah. It felt a little bit insane. And then I didn't get married until I was 35. And, you know, at that point, it was like, well, whoever marries me is going to have to be crazy enough to, 1, want kids, 2, not want to wait for kids, and 3, be okay with me giving birth at home. Because I had already decided on those things, right? Like I wanted to have babies still, even though I was old, and I wanted to have them at home. And so
old, okay,
old,
let's
relatively older, advanced maternal age, if you want the like, you know, medical definition for it. Yeah.
And you found him.
And I found him, and we got married, and we got pregnant right away. Like my due date was 9 months and 2 days after our wedding, I think. Not that anybody's counting, but it was close.
Really? Yeah.
Yeah.
You guys knew what you wanted though. You were just ready.
We just knew that we weren't going to prevent. We knew that we didn't want to wait. And so we said, okay, if that means that it happens right away, then it happens right away. And if that means it takes a couple months or a couple years, then it takes a couple months or a couple years.
Yeah.
And so we just said, okay, here we go. Here we go, God, whatever. And so we did. We got pregnant right away, and we started interviewing midwives, and ultimately went with one that was highly recommended by a couple of my friends who had birthed with her or were in the process with her at that point, and just kind of settled on like, she feels like a good fit. She comes highly recommended, and she has this like out of hospital space that we can birth in if, you know, it doesn't work to birth at home. At the time that we found out we were pregnant, we were in the process of moving out of the apartment that my husband had lived in for 7 years and had not found a place to land yet. So we were moving into my parents' house. And so we were just in this season of like, everything is new, everything is changing. There's a lot of unknowns. And if we don't land somewhere in the next 9 months that we would be comfortable giving birth, like this is a great second option.
Sure. That makes a lot of sense.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so we just landed there, and
you were still
went along.
But then you did find a place that you were intending to birth at home originally.
Yes. Yep. Yeah. So we just kind of went along that pregnancy. Like I was sick. I had pretty bad nausea for like the first, I don't remember, 12, 14 weeks, something like that. But it was otherwise fairly unremarkable. Pregnancy went normal. We found a place to live. We moved in, and things were going just like normal. Like everything was good.
You were getting your chiropractic care throughout your pregnancy.
Getting my chiropractic care through pregnancy, which like I cannot even imagine people that go all the way through pregnancy without getting adjusted a single time, because I've been adjusted at least once a week for the last 9 years, almost 10 years, and all the way through all of my pregnancies. Like if you're listening to this and you have been pregnant without a chiropractor, like just go find one for your next pregnancy, just do it. So amazingly helpful and impactful and important.
Like,
just do it.
Yeah. I've been lucky enough to have it for most of my pregnancies as well.
Yeah.
From the same people as you.
Yes.
And I'm so grateful.
Yes.
So you had a really easy pregnancy. Can you remind me, like, did this overlap with the COVID time? I feel like it did, right?
Yeah. So we got married in May of 2020 and got pregnant right away. So my guest date was like early February of 2021. Like it was still firmly in the peak of COVID. And that was not a contributing factor to wanting to give birth at home, but it was very much a contributing factor to like, I don't want anything to happen during this pregnancy or with this birth that I have to end up in a hospital.
Oh, 100%. Yeah.
And then it did. And so I had nosebleeds off and on, and it was winter and it was dry, but around 30, 31 weeks, somewhere in there, I woke up in the middle of the night with this like massive nosebleed that we could not get to stop, and ended up calling paramedics, ended up being transported to the ER in order for them to get it to stop. And so that was my first experience of being pregnant in a medical space during COVID. And it was just like, it was 100% solidified why I was staying away from the medical model, why I wanted to be at home, why I wanted like no interventions. And it also, spoiler alert, let us know how far away from like emergency services we were. And
because you had to make that track.
Because we had to make that call of like, do we call an ambulance? I like when I say massive nosebleed, I mean, I was like hunched over the toilet and the toilet bowl was like so full of blood. Like, obviously can't quantify it because it was already full of water, but it was just like there was so much blood coming out of me that it was just terrifying and it wouldn't stop.
Wow, that's crazy.
Yeah, it was insane. And so that happened and things got under control afterwards. But then I talked to my midwife and she's like, yeah, like I don't want to do a COVID test where they stick a thing up your nose because obviously like your nose is really having its own party right now. Like we need to just leave it alone. But I want to get some blood work done and like one, check your like iron levels, your blood counts, all of that. But two, I really want a COVID antibody test to see if you have had COVID. And it came back positive. And it came back so positive that she was like, oh, you have COVID right now. I mean, I had a cold last week. Like don't
around
really,
the same time as the nosebleed?
Like just before it.
Okay.
Yeah. Like don't even, it wasn't even remarkable that I remembered thinking like, oh, this cold could be COVID. Like it was, I literally just had a cold.
Run of the mill cold.
Just run of the mill cold. And she like had so much fear, even just in that. She was like, oh my gosh, you have COVID and like you need to stay home and I'm not going to see you in person. We're only going to do virtual for like the next 2 appointments. Cause I was, or the next, I don't know, the next week or whatever. And you need to not go to work. And she just like all of this fear and all of this like, what is happening in the world?
I mean, I feel like our whole culture was like swimming in this like ambient fear during that time, you know? And it just would then it would like express itself in these bursts in certain people at certain times of like overt fear. And you really got one of those bursts there.
Yeah. Well, and it was like so counter what I knew about her as a midwife.
Yeah.
And it was so counter like everything that all of the people that recommended her to me like talked about with her was that she was like willing to go outside of, you know, the exact regulations for her license. She wasn't afraid of like losing her license by doing things, or like you could ask her like, if your license didn't matter, what would you tell me? Okay, but because your license does matter, like what's your recommendation? And like kind of going outside of the system. And in this, she was just like, she was just full of fear and full of like, nope, we have to follow the rules and you have to stay home and you have to like quarantine and whatever. And that kind of just like started this, I don't even know, in my mind of just like, this isn't quite what I thought I signed up for. But like, I still really like her and I'm still like, I'm not going to change providers at this point. I'm still like, she still comes really highly recommended. So it really wasn't even a thought in my brain. It was just kind of like this nugget that just like settled inside of me somewhere. And yeah. And then we actually ended up we didn't do an anatomy scan in that first pregnancy. So we ended up doing 2 ultrasounds after I had COVID a couple weeks apart because she wanted a comparison. She wanted a growth comparison.
Okay.
Be like, make sure that whenever I had COVID didn't like totally affect my pregnancy and that things were still going to be fine.
And this is probably because I remember around that time hearing a lot of the midwives in my life talk about the placental differences they were seeing because of COVID, and they weren't sure quite what the relationship was there, but there was enough weird stuff going on. I have to imagine that she was probably trying to make sure you didn't have some sort of weirdness going on with placenta that would infect baby's growth or something. Yeah. Okay. And she didn't really give me the full why. She just wanted like a comparison of, okay, how is baby now and how is baby in a few weeks? And is there any like growth restriction? I don't think we even talked about the placenta until afterward. Oh yeah. Maybe she didn't scare you by mentioning that. Yeah, I don't even know. But but she just wanted comparisons. And so I had the first ultrasound at like 33 or 34 weeks maybe. And then the second one at like 38 and a half, because I don't remember even ever seeing the results from the second ultrasound or seeing the comparison. So I get to my 39-week appointment and she starts out our conversation by saying, I don't think you should birth at home because of how long the emergency response was when you had that nosebleed. And I'm concerned about bleeding and I'm concerned about clotting with COVID. And we're learning about more of these things with COVID and how it could have affected your pregnancy. Like I would be much more comfortable if you came to my birth house. And I was like, oh, okay. That is not what I was expecting in this appointment. Yeah. And then she took my blood pressure. Like, oh gosh, that was like the immediate first thing she did after this conversation. And it was high. Of course. And of course it was high. Like, of course I'm like, my body is trying to re-regulate and trying to figure out what in the world is going on.
And so like, neither one of us thought a ton of it, but just like hey, we should pay attention to this. So she was like, okay, check your blood pressure again tomorrow a couple times, like text me, call me if it's high, like we'll talk about it, we'll figure things out, but like just go home, talk about switching from being at home to the birth house, and I'll see you next week.
And for those listening who might not know this, the birth house is intentionally, it's freestanding, not connected to a hospital, but it's intentionally located within about a 10 to 12 minute drive of one of the best hospitals in our state. So
yeah,
she was trying to get Becky closer to emergency care that was needed. Okay.
Not the like full half hour that it took the ambulance to get to my house, and then like a 20-minute drive from my house to the closest hospital. Yeah. So like with the nosebleed, I think we were over an hour from when we called the ambulance to when I was actually in the ER.
Yeah,
and
that's too
she
long
was just trying to avoid that and trying to say like, if there is some kind of emergency, we just need to be closer. And so we went home, we talked about it, we prayed about it. I checked my blood pressure. So Tuesday was the appointment. I checked my blood pressure Wednesday morning when I got to work because I had a cuff at work. And it was totally normal. And I texted her that and texted her like, do you still want me to check it again? And never saw the text that she sent back. So she texted back, but I never saw it and didn't realize it until like when I was in labor. But yeah, so it was like normal and it was out of my head. It's like, okay, we're fine. Blood pressure's good. Like nothing's going on. I didn't know enough about preeclampsia at that point to like be freaked out, which I think was maybe God's grace of like, you don't know that you should be freaking out right now with what your blood pressure is doing or what your body's doing, or the fact that I then had a headache that weekend. That was like, it was a pretty rough headache. And it was either like the end of the week or over the weekend or something. And I was like, I'll just go get adjusted. Like, I'll be fine.
Yeah.
Just need to drink more water, probably more electrolytes. And I did. And it mostly went away. And it was just like, oh, I just kind of have this dull headache, but I'm 39, almost 40 weeks pregnant, and just had some like kind of upending in my birth plans. And, so just was like, okay, I guess we go with it.
So you didn't check your blood pressure again after that initial reading at home?
Did not check it again. Nope. And I don't remember her checking it after that. So I am getting ahead of myself. But the day before I turned 40 weeks, I woke up to losing my mucus plug and having like strong but infrequent contractions, like maybe like 10 to 15 minutes. Strong enough that I was like, okay, Dan, you're not going to work, because he was working an hour-ish away at that point. But not strong enough that I was like, oh, we need to go anywhere or do anything. It's just like, let's just stay home and kind of pay attention and monitor and whatever.
Yeah.
And we did. And we both just stayed home. I remember it was February, but it was like 50 degrees. And there was a bike path right by our condo that was clear. And so we like went for like a 2-mile walk. Just like, it was just very peaceful. It was a very sunny day. It was very peaceful. Things were great. And then went to bed that night, woke up the next morning to kind of the same pattern of like, they're there and they're strong enough, but like they kind of petered out when I got up, and I was just like, okay, fine. I'm going to go to work because I just need something to distract me.
Yeah.
And my friends that, had babies were like, just come in. You can just work in the back if you want to. Like, you don't even have to be around people, but just like, it'll get your mind off of things. So I did. I went into work.
I love it.
For like, I think I ended up being there for like 2 or 3 hours. And by the time I left, I was having very consistent, like 5-minute apart contractions. And that's where I got to the point of like, okay, I have maybe a 20 to 25-minute drive home, and then we have to get everything in the car, and then we have to drive to the birth house, which is another 20-ish, 25 minutes from our house. Like, I'm at the point where I don't think I really want to wait anymore.
Yeah.
And so I drove home and I was like, oh, these contractions are strong. Like, this is the real thing. And I remember talking with the like assistant midwife or second midwife on the phone when I was at home, kind of in between everything. She's like, well, you're a first time mom. Like, it's probably going to take a while. Are you really sure you need to come now? Like, one of us can come over from seeing patients, but if you're okay laboring at home, we would recommend staying there. And I was like, no, like, I can't talk through this one. Okay, that hurts. I need to come now.
Yeah.
And so we did. And Dan drove there for the first time ever. We had not actually been to the birth house, which she at that point was still having people come and like see the house that they were going to be giving birth in before they did.
Yeah.
I don't know if she still does or not, but just like, hey, this is where you're going to be and this is where you're coming. And her offices were like just around the corner. So like 2 blocks away. And so he's driving and he's like, just tell me where to go. And I like almost missed the turn into the house because I was having a contraction and I wasn't paying attention. And I was just like, we're here, like right here, go here. And we get in there and midwife checks me and I was like, I don't really want to know how far dilated I am, but if you think that it's important, like go ahead, but just don't tell me.
Mm-hmm.
Don't tell me anything. Just tell me like, what recommendations do you make based off of what you're finding and feeling?
I love that request. Yeah.
And so she did. She's like, okay, like I would recommend like we're going to do some different positioning to try and help get baby engaged. We're just going to, like we're going to take it a couple contractions at a time. And so we did. I don't know if it was like the full mile circuit, but we did like, it was on one side and then I was on my stomach and then I was on my other side with like a peanut ball in between my legs. And that was terrible. I actually like really hated it. It was none of the positions were comfortable at all. And then I started getting really nauseous and I was just like in between contractions for, I don't know, half hour to an hour, just like throwing up in between every single contraction to the point of just not having anything in me. And I was feeling very like worn down and very tired and very just like, I don't know how much longer I can do this. And ended up like hopping in the bathtub. She checked me again and again was just like, yeah, if you want to just hop in the bathtub, if you want to go home and try to relax. And I was like, okay, I'm nowhere near where I think I am.
If
I
she's
am not going home. I am not going home. Like, this is not going to happen. I can't do this. So I hopped in the bathtub and it was so relaxing.
They have great bathtubs
They
there.
do. I remember like almost falling asleep and my husband is like a swim instructor and lifeguard. And he was like, I have to make you get out of the tub. I can't let you fall asleep because it just goes against everything inside of me.
Bless Dan.
Oh, bless him. But also like that was the first place I finally felt comfortable.
Right.
And at some point the midwife had offered me Benadryl and I think Zofran to just try and help like mitigate some of the nausea because it was just
therapeutic rest.
Just like I was so just feeling so terrible. And so I was just kind of out of it. I think I had that before I got in the tub. And so
no wonder you were falling asleep in there. Yeah.
And like finally starting to relax. And so, yeah, he laid down on the bed and I think slept for a couple hours. I just kind of tried a couple different positions and like was half asleep because of the Benadryl. Just trying to like figure out how to be comfortable. I had one friend that was like there supporting me, but she was in and out because she had her 3-month-old along. And then my other friend that was like my backup support person had hopped on a plane that morning. Was hopping on a plane the next day, I think, to head to a work conference. So like my whole office was going to a work conference and I was not able to go along because we were figuring I would probably be in labor, but didn't realize like what my whole story would be. But that plays into more of the story. Again, getting ahead of myself.
Quick question. Was your blood pressure checked when you got to the birth house too?
I don't remember them checking it.
And it could just be that you don't remember because you were like in labor land.
My guess is that it was. I honestly have not looked back at my
their protocol to do it.
I would say they probably did, but I don't remember it being checked and I don't remember hearing numbers if it was checked. Yeah. So yeah, valid question. Yeah. So we got there. It had to have been like 2 or 3 in the afternoon. And around just before midnight, I was like, I need to go to the bathroom. Like, I need to go to the bathroom. Help me in the bathroom. But I was so tired and so out of it and had been laboring for, like close to 12 hours, probably 11 hours of like the consistent and getting stronger contractions at that point, that I was just like, I just need help. And so Dan on one side, and I think the midwife was on my other side, and they like walked me across the hall to the bathroom. And they said that I tried to sit down like once we got right inside the door, and I don't remember this. And so they like directed me over to the toilet, and I ended up sitting sideways on the toilet. Again, don't remember this. And pretty much immediately after that had a seizure. And Yeah.
Which is why you don't remember
Which
this.
is why I don't remember this.
Yeah.
Oh gosh. I knew I was going to cry.
Yeah.
Here we go. And so the main midwife wasn't in the room at the time. She was apparently walking up the stairs because she thought I sounded pushy, which was like, I mean, there's just blessings upon blessings of how this whole thing happened, right? So she was already on her way up the stairs. We were at the birth house and not at our condo. So when she called 911, they were there like immediately. So fast. I was in the ambulance and we were driving away within 7 minutes.
Wow. That's impressive.
Yeah. Like they had to have been right there. And that's with her like making them wait for my husband while she made him go pee, because she was like, you need to go use the bathroom before you go to the hospital because we don't know what's going to happen when you get there. And yeah, and I don't remember it at all. I don't even remember like saying that I needed to go to the bathroom. The last thing I remember is really just like being on hands and knees on a birth ball, talking with people and just trying to like breathe through contractions. And so, yeah, so they transported me to this hospital that's like world class. And another blessing is that she had the phone number of the OB that was on call that night. And while the ambulance is calling the hospital to give them a report and tell them like, this is what's happening, she's calling this doctor and saying, hey, this is what's on its way. This is what's happening. She, it's a planned home birth. She didn't want any interventions. And praise the Lord that this OB that was on call had the wherewithal to like check me before just whisking me right away into surgery. And he checked and I was like fully dilated, fully effaced. Baby was right there, ready to come out.
So you probably were sounding pushy.
So I probably was sounding pushy. Like I probably was in transition.
So was your seizure was over by the time you got to the hospital?
It was over by the time we were on our way.
Okay.
Dan told me later that I like tried to sit up in the ambulance and be like, no, bring me back. Like I'm going back there. I'm going back to the birth house.
Oh, wow.
Don't remember at all.
Okay.
But yeah, I was like in this like post-ictal. So like really like out of it, but not seizing anymore.
Yep.
Really drowsy, really loopy stage when I actually had a baby. And so I remember somebody getting in my face and being like, okay, Becky, you have to push right now or it's a C-section, like, or we're going in the surgery. And I don't remember pushing. I don't remember them using the vacuum, but they apparently had put it on twice and it popped off. And that third time is when somebody got in my face and was like, you have to push now. And the vacuum worked. They cut an episiotomy at some point in there. And this all, I think he was born just after 1. And so the seizure happened just after midnight and he was born just after 1. So with transport time, with getting me like into a room and doing the vacuum a couple of times and whatever, like it was fairly quick, I think.
Especially like we expect first time moms pushing stages to be longish.
Yeah.
And you were post seizure and still managed to cooperate in pushing out your baby within that time frame. That's pretty impressive.
Yeah. And I don't even remember them holding him up. I remember my husband looking over at me and telling me that it was a boy and me thinking that he was absolutely insane because I felt the whole pregnancy that it was a girl. And I was just like, no, you're wrong. Like, this is all a dream. This is just all like I'm sleeping and this is a dream and I'm going to wake up and I'm still going to be at the birth house and I'm going to like have my girl. And then it like I didn't wake up because it was just my reality.
Yeah.
And his APGAR scores were super low. I don't even remember what they were, but they were like 2 and 5 or something. He was really in rough shape. And so they whisked him right away to the NICU and finally got me like stabilized, got me on their like post preeclampsia protocol, whatever, with like a magnesium drip. And I ended up staying in the hospital myself for 6 days, just trying to get the headaches and the blood pressure under control.
So that I'm assuming they did the labs on you when you got there for pre.
Yeah.
And found so they drew very labs just you were diagnosed.
Things were super wonky in my labs. And I don't think they did a urine protein test at all. But I just remember them saying like, yeah, like you had a seizure. So it's eclampsia. But then like I wrestled with it for a really long time of like, was this like, it's a chicken or egg situation. Did the seizure happen because of preeclampsia or did the like dehydration from throwing up caused the seizure, and it was like an electrolyte imbalance kind of thing, or was it something to do with having COVID during the pregnancy? And yeah, I think the official diagnosis is preeclampsia. I don't think there's ever going to be a final answer of like, this is for sure what happened.
All the factors.
Like, could have been a response to the medication that I took, that like, I don't take any drugs ever. So putting Benadryl and Zofran in my body during labor when it's already doing funky things, throwing up like causes massive electrolyte imbalances, and massive electrolyte imbalances can cause seizures. But then like my liver labs were very wonky after birth, which is
one of the primary
where we
markers.
landed for sure postpartum pre-E.
Yeah.
And it took like massive IV meds. And then I went home on oral blood pressure meds, and it still took, I don't know, 4 to 5 weeks for my blood pressure to like come down and stabilize.
Whew.
Yeah.
That's such a long road.
Yeah. And he ended up in the NICU for 17 days. And just like, that was, I mean, I could tell stories about the NICU, but we don't have time for all of that. But like,
could do a whole episode on NICU at some point. I feel like,
word,
but let's not today.
But just like so unexpected. And I think that's what made it so much harder, is because like, you know, we were planning up until 39 weeks, we were planning on not even leaving our house.
Right.
And then at 39 weeks, we were like, okay, we're leaving our house. We're going to the birth house, and then we're going right back home. Like a friend that had done that had gone home at like the 4-hour mark, because that like kind of like magic window where like you have this spurt of energy and you want to just get home now before you kind of dwindle off again or whatever. And so like, that was kind of my plan. And that was not what happened. And it took a lot of wrestling with God. It took a lot of questioning. It took a lot of therapy to like work through and be like, okay, God, like, I'm glad that he's alive, and I'm glad that we both made it.
Yeah.
And I'm really glad that we were where we were, because if we had been at home, there's a very strong possibility that one or both of us would not have made it.
Yeah.
But like, also, why in the world, if I wanted this home birth and I planned and prepared for it and did everything that I could, like, why is this my story?
It's like, feels so unfair. And that's not how this is supposed to work. Like, it's just not how it's supposed to work.
Like, birth works. Like, when you do all the right things, birth works. And that's kind of what I had gotten to the point of hearing. And so it's like, well, I did all the right things and birth didn't work. And so what's wrong with me? Place a lot of blame on myself and a lot of questioning. And like I said, that's why I needed a lot of therapy to just like work through it and try to figure out like, okay, if this is my first birth story, where in the world do I go from here? If we want more kids, which I think I still do, like, how do I take what I just did and experienced and walked through and like pair it with this God that I know is good and that I know I can trust and that I know redeems? But also, like, that's a really big story to have to, like, okay, God, what's next?
Yeah, it is. Yeah. I mean, I can't imagine not having fear and trembling leading up to a second pregnancy after that experience.
Yeah.
I hear, like, both the disappointment, the disillusionment, the, like, after the fact, having it dawn on you what just happened and what could have happened if a couple things had been different.
Yeah.
And like, then there's like that weight of like fear in your body, even though you don't remember it,
right?
Like, you grasp like, oh wow, that could have been death.
Yeah. Yeah. And my body remembers, like my mind doesn't remember, but my body remembers. And my body took a lot of work to like get to the point where like, I didn't just physically freak out at even hearing other people's perfectly normal, healthy home birth stories, or where I didn't start bawling anytime somebody mentioned like how well birth works when you just do all the things. And like, so like my body,
people?
Oh my goodness. Yeah. So much.
Yeah.
There were so many times.
I'm sure you probably even wanted to punch me at points, and that's totally fine.
I think that you had enough wherewithal to not say any of the stupid things that other people say.
But I mean, even just, I know that I talk about birth in the ways, like that's the message that I carry. And like, I very much understand why hearing a message like that in the wake of a story that like the one you lived would feel like, shut up, I'm going to punch you, because it was not that way for me.
Yeah. I mean, I think there was a season where I don't think you guys had even started podcasting yet, but I was
No, we hadn't.
I can't listen to birth stories.
Yeah.
Like I can't listen to them for however many months this takes my body to just be okay. I can't listen to people in person. I can't listen to them online. I just have to remove myself from anything birth. So we after that, my husband and I both were like, okay, well, we feel like we want more than one kid. We're not really sure what we're going to do. But we'll just kind of go with it. Yeah. And we got to after, I think it was just after the 1 year mark. And I was like, okay, so background, because I got married older, I had never really known about cycle tracking. Mm-hmm. I was abstinent, right? I'm never going to get pregnant if I never get married because I'm not having sex. So I don't need to know that much.
Sure.
And then it's oh, well, I am not going on birth control. That's a for sure not happening thing.
Yeah.
I need to be aware of my body and I need to start figuring out my cycles. And so I think I got my cycle back at 6 months with my first. And there were a few times before I started having cycles that I was I'm pregnant. And I think I even called my midwife at one point and was just I feel like I'm pregnant, but the tests say it's negative, but these are all the things I'm feeling. And she talked me off the ledge and was it's probably just your body trying to get back into the rhythm of the cycle. Right. And it was within, I think a month and a half after that is when I had my first cycle. And I was okay. So I got the fertility book that I'm drawing a blank on right now.
Was it Taking Charge of Your Fertility?
Taking Charge of Your Fertility. Started reading that and was okay, I have enough wherewithal to figure out my body. So we can do this. And my husband just kind of left it up to me. He was just you know what? If you're tracking things and you're saying we're okay, then we're just gonna live we're fine.
Yeah.
I'm okay, great. I did not tell him this at that point, but I was just I don't really know what I'm doing. And I'm probably kind of messing stuff up as we go here. But we weren't, once we hit the 1 year mark for sure, we weren't really trying to prevent. We had kind of been loosely tracking and just yeah, we're just going to kind of avoid around the time that we think we might be ovulating, but we're not really trying to prevent anything. And I think, so he was born in the beginning of February. The end of March of the following year, we were going on a little mini vacation and we were going to a place with a hot tub. And I was feeling I could be pregnant. I feel I'm due for my period and I don't know, I could be, but I couldn't be. And so I took a test and it was negative. And I was okay, fine. We're good. I'm not pregnant. We hadn't really talked about the nitty gritty of when I get pregnant again, what are we going to do? And so we just we're okay, I'm not pregnant. Totally fine. Went on our little vacation, stayed at this house with a hot tub, went in the hot tub quite a bit, and then came home, thought I was starting my period. So put my cup in. Sorry if that's TMI to anybody, but put my cup in.
This is a birth podcast.
Right? Took it out the end of the day and was okay, so I didn't actually start my period I thought I was. This is kind of weird. But there was blood last night. I know there was blood. So what's going on? And I think I waited still another day after that. And then I took another test and it was so immediately positive. I went, okay, so I guess I just tested too early. I'm pregnant. Here we go. And I told my husband by leaving a sticky note because I left for work earlier than him that day. And so I was just I was up and out the door before he was even up out of bed. And so just left him a sticky note of I think you're a really good dad and I love how well you take care of both of our kids or something along those lines, so that he would, or no, he was gone already for work. That's what it was. And so I left him a note that he would see when he got home. Dropped our older son off, went to work, and then came home and he was wait, does this mean what I think it means? And I was yeah, we're having another baby. And he's okay. And we were totally just okay, this is great.
Good.
And then we were okay, so what do we do? And I ended up interviewing 2 other midwives other than the one that I had used with my first birth, just because I wasn't fully settled on like, is she the right person? Because of how things had happened, was just like, I don't really know if I want to try birth with her again, or if I want to try with somebody else, if I want a different experience, whatever. And one of the midwives I talked to over the phone, and she was like, well, I would take you on, given your story. I would require you to co-manage with an OB, like on your own. Like you would need to also see an OB if you were going to be seeing me.
Okay.
And I was just like, oh, that just doesn't feel, meh. That just,
Yeah.
Yeah. And then the other one Dan and I both went to and like met with her in person and walked away from it going like, we don't dislike her, but we're just like not feeling it. Like it just doesn't feel like she's the right person. And I think I had reached out to a third midwife and never heard back from her. And then I went and talked to the midwife that I had for my first pregnancy and was like, okay, I'm considering hiring you again, but like, I want to talk through my birth first before we like say yes to anything. And so we did, and we got some closure as much as we could. Like, you know, there's still so many unknowns of what happened with my body, but it was just like, yeah, like here's all of my notes. Here's all of the OB's notes. We can kind of talk through things, and we can talk through what we'll do this pregnancy differently if you choose to hire me. And so we went and we had that appointment with her, and both Dan and I walked away and we were like, I mean, yeah, why not? Like it just, nothing else feels right. So I guess if we want a home birth, this is the route that we're going to go.
Yeah.
And one of her stipulations with us was that we would be at the birth house again, because we were actually living even further away at this point. We had moved and we were living further away. And she's like, you know, I know you're 2 minutes from a hospital, but you're not 2 minutes from like the hospital. And, you know, we'd be more comfortable. So you can either like get a hotel room downtown Grand Rapids or an Airbnb, or you can do the birth house. And I'm like, I mean, I know people do this like hotel or Airbnb thing, but that feels like so much logistically to figure out. And like the cost of it and trying to figure out the logistics and everything. I was just like, no, we're just going to do the birth house.
Was there any concern for you that being in the birth house again would be like triggering?
Oh, massive.
Okay. Because
massive concern.
I feel like for me, there would be.
Yes.
Which is maybe why the suggestion was made that you could try an Airbnb or something if you didn't want that triggered.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yep. And I was still seeing a therapist at the time. And she actually, like, we did one of my therapy sessions at the birth house.
Oh,
so it was just like, you can, you know, here's the code, you can go in, like,
wow,
you know, we'll double check like an hour ahead of time to make sure we don't have anybody there in labor. But like, if it's open, you can go in and just be there.
I love that.
And it was great. We did.
That's
and
great.
It was really good. It was really, really helpful.
Yeah.
Walked away still not having like full closure of like, I feel good being here, but walked away being like, I can do this. Like I can walk in this space. I'll use like, she has like 2 suites in the birth house, right? So it's like, I'll just use the other suite. Like, I'm totally fine. Because that part is not familiar to me at all. It's not where I was. And like, it'll be okay.
Yeah.
And so that was the plan.
Yeah. Good. Okay. Yeah. Well, first of all, I just want to say, I want to give that midwife props for both having that conversation with you, and then you and her and the therapist coordinating to get you in there
right?
to do that.
Yeah.
That's some beautiful care.
Yes.
There to make space for those sorts of things.
It was really helpful.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then one of her other stipulations with that pregnancy was that I would do an anatomy scan so that if something happened later in pregnancy, again, like it did with my first, that we would have something to compare to.
Okay.
And so we did. I showed up to my anatomy scan at 23 weeks pregnant, laid down on the table, and vividly remember the tech putting the probe down, looking at the screen, lifting the probe up and looking at me and going, "Is this your first ultrasound?" And I was like, what an odd question. Yes, this is my first ultrasound this pregnancy, but is it my first ultrasound ever? No. And I think that's kind of how I like responded to her.
Okay.
And she put the probe back down and looked at me again and was like, I'm not really supposed to tell you this, but since it's your first ultrasound and you have no clue, you're having twins. And I was like, what in the world?
So late to find out.
Oh, my goodness. Are you sure? Like, are you sure? And she's like, here, let me pull up the screen for you. And like the screen was like on the ceiling, and she just like projected the image up there and I was like, oh, there are two heads right there.
Like very obvious.
That's very, very obvious that like, oh, there are two babies inside of me. And no wonder I'm a little bit bigger than I was with my first, but I still wasn't huge.
Yeah.
And no wonder, like at that point, so we had been doing some labs and doing like some extra blood work and stuff. And things were just like on the edge of where they should have been, despite me doing like even more that I should have been doing. So like, despite trying to follow the brewer's diet to a T, and despite like getting adjusted twice a week instead of once a week, and despite just like all of the things, it was just like things were just kind of teetering on the edge. And it was like, well, there's two babies in there.
This needs to do the brewer's diet for twins now, actually, is what needs to happen here.
Like, I have to take into consideration, like, all of my stuff from my first pregnancy. So the eclampsia, the fact that I'm old, because that's, like, one of the stipulations for adding more protein in the brewer's diet, I think, is, like, age. I think there was one other thing. And then adding in the fact that I was having twins. And I was falling short by, like, 20 to 30 grams of protein a day. It's like, oh, okay, well, yeah, no wonder things are teetering on the edge.
Of course, yeah.
Of course, like this makes total sense. But I was also alone at this ultrasound. My husband was at home with our toddler. My parents were out of town, and he had to be on a work meeting. So I like texted him and was like, call me as soon as you get a chance. Like, as soon as you get a chance. And so he called me once he got the toddler outside on the swing, like after his little work meeting was done. And I was like, Dan, are you sitting down? And he goes, no, I'm pushing him on the swing. And I said, okay, we're having twins. And he just like laughed. He was just like, oh, okay. Okay, God's got it. Like, and he was this super steady rock, like that whole weekend. It was a Friday afternoon that I had this ultrasound, right? And he was just like super steady that whole weekend. Well, I just freaked out the whole time. And so we were not originally planning on finding out gender of the second, just like we didn't with the first. It was a surprise. We were not going to find out with the second. And he goes, okay, so if it's twins, we just need to know. Like, we need to know if it's two more boys or we need to know if it's girls. And I was like, okay, but I don't want to find, like, I still don't want to know. So I'll have them write it down and I'll let you look at it. And then, like, yeah, he ended up, like, looking at it and then came and told me, and I started crying. And he was like, is this good tears or bad tears? I'm like, this is good tears because I really wanted the first to be a girl and it wasn't. And you just told me that we're having two girls. And it was just like this moment of like, okay. And I started feeling and hearing the word redemption and just like, okay, God, like this is meant to be my redemptive birth. This is meant to be my redemptive pregnancy, my redemptive birth, but it doesn't feel like it because I'm working really hard and things are still not going how I want them to. And we're still sitting on edge. And now we have this massive complication because not only am I having twins, but I am having identical twins. So monochorionic diamniotic, right? Is that the right way? So one placenta, two sacs, which in the state of Michigan means that my midwife can no longer solely provide care for me. She has to outsource to a OB or MFM just for the monitoring, because when they share a placenta, there are complications that can arise. So yeah, so that started this whole journey of me and maternal fetal medicine that I like never thought I would be on. Yeah. So to back up just a little bit, my midwife had already been talking with this MFM office about me with some of my labs with my pregnancy because of the concerns from my first birth. Sure. So she had already kind of been like running some things by them, kind of bouncing stuff off of them, like has a relationship with them, whatever. So then we find out it's identical twins. And she's like, okay, so here's them. Like, I'm going to put in a referral and they're going to call you and they're going to start seeing you and we're going to co-manage. Okay. I'm like, okay, co-manage sounds better than just like, I'm dumping you. Right. So, yeah. So I kept seeing her and I started seeing them. And I think my first appointment with them was at like 28 weeks, just with how long it took to like get them to call me initially with the referral and then find a time that worked in their schedule and mine. They wanted, because I didn't have a first ultrasound until I was 23 weeks, they wanted like a super in-depth ultrasound to like for sure determine that it was one placenta and that they were actually in separate sacks, and to like get every single measurement and whatever. And so they're like, plan on the ultrasound being like 3 hours long.
Whoa.
My goodness.
That's a long one.
Coming from the girl that didn't want an ultrasound at all to telling me like, oh, you're going to have several of these and they're going to be like on a weekly basis. I was like, this is not feeling like redemption, God. This is feeling like work and like chaos and just adding in so many layers of so many unknown things. But I was like, well, no other midwife would take me at this point. So I can't just like switch midwives. I don't want to just solely go into the care of a hospital. So I am just going to keep going along as I am and trust and believe that like we're going to make it to 36, maybe 36 and a half weeks. And my body is just going to hang in there and do all the things it needs to do. And then I'm going to have these babies and I'm going to have them at home. And I just like, I remember telling, I think the very first MFM doctor that I was meeting with, like they knew that I was planning a home birth, but to like say it out loud and for them to come back and be like, yeah, you probably won't.
Oh, wow.
And it was just like blow after blow. Like every time I went to an appointment there, it was just like so much, like so disheartening. Just so much like, yeah, you're probably not going to make it that long. And yeah, it's probably not going to work. And like, and why would you ever want to? Like, why would you even consider trying to have these babies outside of a hospital? Like they thought I was crazy. And yeah, to make what could be a very long story a little bit shorter, my labs ended up just not getting to where they needed to be. And we're still kind of teetering on the edge. And at 33 weeks, my midwife was like, I can't provide care for you anymore. Like 1, I don't think your body is going to make it. And 2, I'm not comfortable like providing care for you.
And when we say your labs, do you mean your pre-E labs?
Yeah. Okay. The pre-E labs. So like liver, I think it's the liver enzymes. And then I had trace protein in my urine. I think I had like the albumin level was off. And they were just like, everything I was doing was like kind of keeping them like teetering on the edge of not okay, but they were like more not okay than okay.
So she just reached a point where she's like, I just don't feel comfortable anymore being in this position with you. And so at that point, it became a complete referral, no longer a co-management, but
you this is your last appointment with me. You're going to only go see them from now on. And so that was on a Tuesday. I feel like Tuesday is very common with my story with her. And on that Friday, I had my appointment with MFM. And they looked at my most recent labs and they looked at baby's growth. So we were doing growth ultrasounds every week. And they looked at baby's growth and they looked at my labs and they looked at everything. And they said, we're not comfortable with you like going another week and like checking again in a week. Like we need to induce you. And they were, I don't remember the words that they used, but it was fairly strong. But it was like, you need to be induced. These babies need to come sooner than later. But it wasn't, you need to walk across the street right now.
Sure.
It was, we can do a steroid shot today and a steroid shot tomorrow. And then you can come in like really super late Sunday night, Monday morning. I don't remember what time they had me come. And we'll induce on Monday and you'll have the babies on Monday.
And you would have been 34 weeks then?
And I was 34 weeks that Friday. Okay. So I was like 34 and 3 or 4 or whatever.
And so for our listeners who might not know, with those growth scans, I presume what they were looking at was the twin-to-twin transfusion risk that comes with a monodi or mono-mono, where one baby can end up getting more than its fair share, essentially, of what the placenta offers, and the other like doesn't get nearly enough, and they both suffer. So they were seeing on the growth scans what they saw to be evidence that might be what was going on with your girls.
Yes. Okay. Yeah. So they were like, we think that this might be starting. And better to catch it now than to like let it turn into full-blown twin-to-twin transfusion and cause the demise of one of the babies. Yeah. I'm like, yeah, I mean, you're talking about my babies dying. Of course, I'm going to follow your recommendation. Like, again, like this fear-based medical model, right? Not like, hey, can I check into the hospital and we monitor it every day? And if something happens, it was like, nope, we're going to just do this. We're like at the point where we're doing it. But thankfully we were able to do the steroid shots, the like 2-part series of steroid shots to help with their lung development because they were so premature. And then I did a deep dive into research on induction and on C-sections and on epidurals and on like all of the things that I didn't want to know anything about. I did a deep dive that weekend because I was like, okay, this is my story. I have to walk into this hospital prepared or they're just going to direct me. And if I walk in knowing what I want and knowing what I want to know and at least advocating for myself and doing what I can, like things might go sort of the way that I want them to.
I mean, smart. Like that's a wonderful way to approach it.
Yeah.
Yeah. Go you.
And one of the most important things for me with that birth was to be awake and conscious when the babies were born, no matter how they were born.
I just have to point out most people would never even think to mention that on their birth plan.
Yeah.
But because, I mean, of course you did.
Of course
you thought of that. But it's just sad that you had to even think of that because most people consider that a given.
Yeah.
Yeah. Like, I just want to be able to remember meeting my babies for the first time, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Of course.
Yeah. And so I did this deep dive of, okay, well, if I do an epidural and tell them to put it on the very smallest drip possible, but then the catheter's already in there, but I can still probably feel things, then if something happens in transition again, I'll still be able to be awake if we go to a C-section. That was kind of my train of thinking with everything was if something happens and we go to a C-section, I'll be awake because we'll do an epidural. Yeah. And I don't want Pitocin because I know how Pitocin just exacerbates the cascade of interventions, right? So I'm okay, so we're going to go in, we're going to do a natural induction, which they did. They did a Foley bulb. So for those of you who don't know, they put a catheter in to your cervix and fill up the balloon on the catheter to basically stretch your cervix and tell it to start opening. And they can only do that if it's already slightly open. And so they had to check first and they're yep, it's at about a 1.5, maybe 2, which is, where it needs to be in order to get started. We'll blow this up. And when it gets to a 4, it'll fall out or it'll come out pretty easily. It'll probably take a few hours for you to really start feeling anything, but it's just gonna start slowly. So we'll do this and then go to sleep. We went in super late at night or early in the morning. I don't even remember, but the Foley actually went in, I think around 3 a.m. And so in my head, I was okay, yeah, I'll go to sleep. I'll get some sleep until 7 o'clock shift change or whatever. And then maybe things will pick up. I was on my hands and knees on that bed within 20 minutes. In pain. Holy cow, my body is contracting and I was not prepared for this soon. Wow. And Dan was trying to sleep on the pull out bed because it's the middle of the night, right? Right. Who does this? So he's trying to sleep on the pull out bed and he was are you okay? And I was these contractions are a lot more intense than I thought they'd be. And wow. And I think they came in and pulled the bulb out within half hour, 45 minutes, maybe.
Wow. Your body responded real
fast. My body was just okay, yeah, we're doing this. And yeah, I don't want to dig into all the details of this birth because again, I could talk for hours, but basically just said no to the Pitocin, said no to them breaking my water for several hours. And then it was mid-afternoon. And fun fact about specialty doctors is they work an 8 to 5 Monday to Friday schedule.
Oh yeah.
They don't do overnights
the on-call
and they don't do weekends. They don't do the on-call thing. And they, given my story, were concerned if I were to go overnight. And so they're we need to do something to speed up. So we can either start Pitocin or we can break your water. I'm I guess we can break my water, but I want the epidural first. Because I don't know how my body is going to respond. I'm already sick of you sticking your hands in me, checking me because they had checked me several times by that point, and it was super uncomfortable.
Of course.
It was just do the epidural and then you can break my water and then, hopefully things will just pick up and we'll just go. And I didn't mention this yet either, but baby A was head down, which is the only reason that they were letting me even consider laboring was because baby A was head down. Baby B was breech. And I said, go find someone that knows how to birth a breech baby. And they said, there's not, and we will do a breech extraction, which basically means that they would let baby A come out naturally and then stick their hands in and pull baby B out. And I'm this is not what I want. But if that is the only way you're telling me that I could possibly have a vaginal birth, then I guess that's what we're doing. And so there's all of this pressure, right? This I really want to have a vaginal birth. I really want things to go as naturally as possible with this induction. but I also have these like looming pieces in my head of like, these are the things that you are requiring because of the type of twins they are. And then because one of them is breech, and then because of my history, and just like all of these things. And so we finally, like, we did the epidural. I think when they checked me afterwards and broke my water, I think it was at like a 5 or a 6. So not super far dilated, but like I was still having very strong, very consistent contractions. I can't talk anymore. It's like, wait, what did I just say? Yeah, still having very strong, very consistent contractions. And they were like, you know, because we just broke the water, we're going to actually like watch a few of them on the monitor in the room before we walk out, just because we know that, you know, like as babies shift and there's not that cushion anymore, like things can happen. And I think they watched like 2 or 3 contractions. And then the head doctor, who was the one that I saw during my prenatal care, that I was like, I absolutely do not want this doctor to be on if I have to give birth in the hospital. And he happened to be the one in the hospital that week, which just was terrible. But
you just got like, bad vibes. Like you just made you feel all sorts of ick.
He was terrible. And he was like, I don't know why anyone would ever birth at home. And I don't know why anyone would not get a COVID shot. Like, I just got my 2nd booster last week, and I was like, get away from me, dude. Like, oh my goodness.
You and this guy are not aligned. We are not aligned in your perspectives on the world.
So completely on opposite ends of the spectrum. And he was very like belittling toward me. And I was just like, I don't want you there. And he was the one that was there. Like, of course, that's like how it goes, right? And so, yeah, he watched like 2 or 3 contractions and was like, yeah, we don't like what baby A's heart rate is doing. She's just like struggling after every contraction. I'm like, I think I know what you're going to tell me, but I don't want to hear it. And he's like, yeah, it's time for a C-section. I'm like, nope. Okay. No, not really, but I don't feel like I have an option. He's like, you know, we can check you one more time when we get to the OR to see if your body has opened up more and is ready to push, or if you're close to being ready to push, then, you know, we can kind of feel it out when we get there. But if we get to the OR and you're still at a 5 or a 6, like, it's surgery time. And the plan all along had been to birth in the OR. That's what they do with twins in the hospital.
Right.
They birth, they like push you into the OR to give birth, because that way, if a complication happens, you're already there. And just like, yeah, I felt so defeated. I felt so like, I thought this was supposed to be my redemptive birth, and all of these things are happening, God. And this is not what I planned. This is not what I expected. This is not what I wanted. Yep. Like, what is happening? And we got in the OR, and of course I was still at like a 5, maybe even less open, because of just all of everything, right? Like, the body knows and is like, oh, nope, even with an epidural, my body is still smart enough to know, like, yep, nope, it's not the right time now. And yeah, so they started prepping me for surgery, and they like immediately turned up the epidural, and they were like tugging on my belly, like, hey, can you feel this? I'm like, yeah, I can. Please don't cut me. Okay, how about now? Like, yeah, no, I'm still feeling all those pokes and pulls that you're doing. And it took a little while for it to like really, for the epidural to really take hold. And they were like, finally, just like, we have to start cutting. Like, you'll be fine. And I don't think Dan was he might not have even been in the room yet when they started cutting, because, you know, we went from like it being okay to like, nope, it's an emergency and we need to go now.
Oh gosh. So he's probably still getting like suited up.
Had to get like scrubbed in and gowned up and all the things and whatever. And I think he was in there before they actually started cutting, but it was like very close. Right. So they opened me up, and then they did allow me to watch, which I think is just kind of like the weirdest, coolest thing ever. So I got to see my babies be born.
Wow.
Just out of my belly, that I could feel like the tugging, but I couldn't feel the cut.
Okay.
Right. And so like, I can feel them tugging, and I'm like watching on the screen as they're like maneuvering baby A out. Oh. And I'm just like, this is the weirdest, like out of body experience ever. That's so crazy. And they got her out. They like held her up for me to see. And then the NICU team took her and checked her, because that's like, you know, right. They're super premature. That's what they do. And we knew that going in.
And is she the one, I can't remember which baby did they think was smaller?
So all of the scans, she was bigger.
Oh, okay.
And then she actually came out smaller. So every single time we measured, she was measuring like, I don't know, a couple ounces to a half a pound ahead. And then she was born at 3 pounds and 15 ounces. So super tiny. But they like got her all checked and they're like, yeah, she doesn't even get oxygen support. Like she's doing so good. And I attribute that to 1, the steroid shots, and 2, being able to labor for so long. And even though I didn't get to push them out, like the ability of them to like work through contractions with me, I think really, really helped set them up for success when they came out. And so they like got her all wrapped up and handed her to my husband, and he just like held her right by my head for the rest of it. And like, yeah, I mean, I didn't get to hold her. I was strapped onto a table. I didn't get to like really touch her, but I got to see her and be close to her. And that was just so like, that was so healing for me.
Yeah. Fully present, conscious, aware. You just watched her come out and now she's cheek to cheek.
Yeah. Yeah. Cool. And then I think it was like 5 minutes in between. So it took like in getting her out and kind of like moving stuff around, moving baby B around because she was in like this breech presentation. So they still call it a breech birth, even though she was born by C-section, which is just so weird to me. But like her like breech presentation and how they had to maneuver her around to like get her out well, held her up, took her over, got her checked, and they're like, yeah, she needs some oxygen support. So we can't like put her by you. And then, so they got her on a CPAP. And I think once they got her on the CPAP and like stable, they just took both of them and took them both down to the NICU together. And they're like, you know, we're going to close you up and take care of you and whatever. I was like, Dan, go with the babies, stay with the babies. I don't need you here. And at that point I got really nauseous from the meds that they were giving me for the surgery. Remember like turning my head and throwing up, and then don't really remember anything until they like woke me up from surgery. So they didn't put me under after they were born, but I was so out of it and just feeling so gross and whatever, like anti-nausea meds then they gave me and whatever, like, I don't even know what else they all gave me, but like, I was kind of out of it while they were stitching me up, which is the longer part of the surgery anyway. Like it takes a lot of time to like sew through 7 layers and get everything back where it's supposed to be and whatever. And so they took me over into the recovery room. Dan was back already from the NICU. And then my friend that was at the hospital with us, kind of acting as a doula, she's not really, but acting as a doula, was able to come in the recovery room and just was like, I'm so proud of you. Like you labored so well. You were so brave. You did everything you could for these babies. Like you did exactly what needed to be done in order to bring these 2 very healthy babies into the world.
I'm so glad she played that truth over you in that moment. Yeah.
And she just like sat and held my hand for a little bit and was just like, I'm proud of you. Like, I know this isn't what you wanted, but I'm so proud of you. And there was some element of redemption, even in that birth, not going the way that it was planned. It didn't feel traumatic. It didn't feel like chaotic and like what in the world just happened. Like the first one. Yeah. It felt like, no, I can follow the steps. I know what happened. I was alert and conscious and present and aware. And yeah, it didn't go like I wanted. And, you know, looking back on it now, almost 3 years later, like, yeah, if I had done things differently, would it have turned into a C-section? I don't know. Like maybe it wouldn't have, but it did. And that's what happened. And I can't change it. But just having somebody pour that truth into me of like, you did everything that you needed to, you labored so well, like, so proud of you. It was just, that was so healing.
It matters so much to be spoken to that way in those moments.
Yeah. Yeah. And not getting that from my provider at all. Right. Like I had this calloused man who like just does surgeries for a living. And so to have like somebody there that could speak that truth over me, it was so healing.
Oh, I bet. I'm so glad. True words. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. And then like, yeah, we were in the NICU a lot longer with the girls because they were so premature. They were so tiny, but had very few interventions. So the one that needed oxygen right after birth, it was like less than 12 hours and she was off and on room air and breathing fine on her own and like totally stable. I think we did a Billy Light for like half a day for one of their jaundice levels. And other than that, they were literally there just like learning how to eat and growing. And they were tube fed for quite a while and then had to like figure out the eating part. We tried nursing, but I knew from our first NICU experience that I was like, if I can just get them to take bottles and get them to eat, then I can take them home. And then I can figure out the nursing part. And that is, again, a whole story in and of itself that I could like dig into for hours on like my feeding journey with them. I ended up mostly pumping for over a year for them. And it was,
that's devotion.
It was a thing. It's its own story, but I did. And like having 3 kids under 2 was just absolutely the most insane thing that we had ever done.
That's so intense.
Yeah.
So intense.
So that's a lot of background to get to my home birth.
But they're really good stories in their own right. So I'm actually glad you spent time on them. I think that they each just have a lot of significant parts and take home messages and like lessons learned and just honest feelings that are really, you just never know who will listen to this and feel less alone because of what you just shared.
Yeah.
And the emotions you allowed yourself to express while doing that.
Thanks.
I think it's a gift.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Okay, and at this point in my conversation with Becky, she and I realized that this was definitely going to end up being a 2-episode conversation. So we're going to stop here after her first 2 birth stories, and I want you to come back in a couple of days because we're going to drop part 2, which will be her 3rd redemptive, beautiful home birth experience. So we'll see you there soon. Thank you so much for tuning in to this week's episode of Holy Wild Birth. We hope that you were genuinely encouraged, inspired, and challenged by what you heard today. If you're loving what you hear, please make sure that you share it. Leave reviews. That helps other mamas find this content as well. And don't forget to read the show notes, okay? Because that's where you can find our email address if you want to reach out to us and start a conversation. It's also where you'll find free offerings as well as invitations to work with me and or Lauren. We can't wait to get to know you. See you next week.